Hi, I'm Emily Taylor from Collage Quilter. Today I'm going to make Christmas stockings. Now let me tell you about the inspiration for this project. So I have two daughters, Amelia and Caroline. They are young, newlywed 20-nothings, and they need Christmas stockings. So I thought that I would teach them how to do piecing, traditional piecing, and how to sew with this little project. So this is the one that I'm going to demonstrate for you. I've already made it, but I'm going to show you how to do it. It's a darling, quilted, lined, just beautiful little easy stockings. Also, here's Amelia's. Amelia wanted to make hers a little scrappier, so you can see that instead of just being solid, she has chosen to do it in a scrappy design, which I love. So the basic block is this star block, and it's really nice to, again, just a good beginner basic star block to teach half square triangles and quarter square triangles and the principles of quilting using a 1/4 inch seam allowance and how to cut fabric, all that. So that's what this project is about. That's why it's in that's what inspired me. Just to tell you real quick before you get started what you're going to need. You will need, the pattern is from collagequilter.com, so check out Collage Quilter. You will need some freezer paper. Now freezer paper is different than parchment paper. Make sure it's freezer paper because this is what we use to make the template. Then you will need 4 different fabrics. You need only 1/8 of a yard, or basically scraps, for the star. Then you'll also need an additional 1/2 yard of the fabric that you're going to make the stocking with, but you'll also use this to cut these corner blocks in. So 1/2 yard of your main fabric, and then 4 additional fabrics for the star. And then you'll need 3/4 of a yard of your lining fabric and 3/4 of a yard of batting. So with that, let's get started. All right, so I have cut the fabric in the sizes that I need it, and I have also cut out this template. Now this template is part of the pattern, which is available at collagequilter.com. So I've traced the template onto freezer paper. Freezer paper is a great useful tool for making templates because it's paper on one side, which allows me to draw, and it's got that shiny waxy side on the other side, so I can lay it down on my fabric and iron it with a dry iron onto my fabric, and it will stick temporarily, and this allows me to cut perfectly around the template. So this is the back side of my stocking. I will need another piece. This is for the front of the stocking, and I've put this on the reverse side of the fabric so that it will match up the way it needs to. So reverse side there with just the partial stocking and the top, because you'll remember we're going to put the star block in the middle. So there's the outside of the stocking, and then this is the larger piece of fabric that will be the lining of the stocking, and I have this doubled up, okay, so that when I cut this out, I've got the 2 lining pieces for the inside of the stocking. And then underneath here are the pieces that I need for the star block. So I've already cut a few of these, and let me just point out what I'm doing here. So again, the instructions are all in the pattern, but we need 1 block that will be the center of the star, and you can kind of see that I chose this one with the bird there. So that's the center of the star. This fabric is in the 4 corners of the star block, and they are 3.5 inches. This is 3.5 inches. And then I also need to have I need to cut 1/4 square triangles, and so this block, any of the blocks that I'm cutting 1/4 square triangles, will be 4 1/4. So I'm going to just demonstrate how I cut the 1/4 square triangles. I just line it up, make sure that these corners are in line with that, and then I lay my ruler down, double check that, cut it, And then I'm gonna shift it and do the same thing. So I'm just gonna line it up, make sure it's lined up on that vertical axis, and cut that. So this is, you will need several quarter square triangles. So you'll need quarter square triangles for, you need at least, oops, this one didn't cut all the way through. Let's just double check that we get that sliced all the way through there. You will need a quarter square triangle for each color. So there's those, and you can see I've already cut them. So for each of the colors that I've selected in the star, I will cut 1 4 1/4 inch square and then cut that into quarter square triangles. And then I will also need 1 square that's 3 7/8 inch for each color that I'm using in the star. And this will be my half square triangles. So you will have enough left over to make lots of blocks, or different, different squares. So that's an example of how to do the half square triangles. Easy peasy. So these are all the cuts that I need, and now I'm going to start laying out my block and make sure I get it laid out perfectly the way I want it to look. I'm going to give some space to allow for seam allowance. And let's see here. We will have this, these will go in each corner here, along each side. We'll kind of build this little star. This is a great star for any beginner to learn how to piece. And then I'm going to take my other fabric here, and when I do that one, I'm going to put this one here. No, this one is going to go here. So I can play around with it, but and then that's all I need. I only need 1 half square triangle of each design and 1 quarter square triangle of each design. And take the, let's see, if we put this one here, and maybe this one. This will help me see too where I might select a different fabric. Like that really, really blends in. It might not show up enough to make that square stand out. And so I might just go into my scraps and find another fabric, or I can just use what I already have, right? Because I've already got some cut. So let's just do that. I really like this one. And let's do maybe a little bit more of that. Okay, perfect. So that's what my square is going to, my block is going to look like. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by sewing these quarter square triangles together. So if you feel comfortable, you don't necessarily need to pin anything, but I do like to, the way I teach my girls is to pin it so that the pin is pointing towards the edge that you need to sew. So I'm going to sew all of the quarter square triangles together, and I will meet you over at the sewing machine. Okay, so here I am at my machine. I have put my block, built the block on my wool pressing mat, and I have a small iron right here too, so that now I don't even have to get up from my machine. I can just sew everything together, press it, and put it together. One thing that I want to point out is on my machine, the foot, I just have a regular, I don't know what you call this foot, but I want to make sure that I keep the 1/4 inch seam. So this is really important. And I happen to know that I need to move my needle position over to this number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've already done this, but I want to just confirm that the needle placement where it's going through the fabric to the edge of my foot, because I like to line my fabric up with the edge of my foot, that is a 1/4 inch. So I've already measured that. Just make sure that you're sewing with 1/4 inch seams, because that's what I've used to calculate for this block. So now I'm just going to chain stitch and begin quilting here, begin piecing. Again, the needle or the pin indicates which edge I need to stitch along. Now I can pull this over and press these seams open. All right, so I'm almost done piecing everything together, and the one thing that I just wanted to point out is how to nest seams. I want to make sure that as I'm joining these things, these rows, that all of the seams are alternating. So if we can see here, I've pressed this seam towards the center block on both of these, and I want to make sure that these are pressed out. That way I can kind of make sure that they lay really nice and flat, and that is called a nested seam, and it makes sure that it ensures that everything, that the whole piece just lays really flat and pretty. So this is the final seam on the star block. And as I feed it through, I just want to make sure that, again, everything lays nice and flat. And I can use my fingertips to feel that everything is lined up and that there's not extra bulk on the seams. Okay, there. So now I will press this and I'll move on to the next segment. All right, so I have finished the front side of the stocking, and let me show you what you need to do is you will cut out the templates, right? And then you are going to, with right sides together, like this, stitch along the top there, and then cut a template with the batting and make it about a half inch smaller around the whole stocking, and then make your quilt sandwich. And now you are ready to quilt. So we'll quilt independently the front and the back side. Now this one I have not stitched across the top because I want to add a little tab for hanging this up. So the way this should go is put this, make sure it's at the corner or the heel side, on the heel side of the stocking. Just fold this over and make sure that this is, part of this is caught in the seam as you stitch along the top edge. And then I'll add, once I have stitched across that, I'll flip it open, press that seam, and then slide the batting inside so that it's ready to quilt like this one. So I'll get this set and then I'll meet you over at the machine. All right, so these little quilt sandwiches are ready to go. And now I'm just going to use straight stitching and do stitching in a ditch and then some vertical lines. Just quilt this, not very dense quilting, on both this one and this one. And then we'll put them together and we'll have a completed Christmas stocking. right, so I have quilted both of these separately. This is one little quilt sandwich and this is one little quilt sandwich. You can see that I just did some vertical and horizontal lines and kind of embellished this one just by doing stitching in the ditch. And now I'm going to put them together, right sides together, and pin these together and trim anything if it's not matching up, but it looks pretty good. So then I'll take this over to my machine and stitch along this edge with about, a little more than 1/4 of an inch, between 1/4 of an inch and 1/2 inch stitch line. And then I will trim, notch the corner if I need to a little bit and flip it inside out. So I'll get that done and then I'll show you the finished project. All right, I am finished and I am really happy with the way this looks. This is a darling Christmas stocking that I'm sure my daughter will enjoy for years to come. And here's the matching one for her husband. Ta-da! All right, so again, you can find this little project, the templates and instructions at collagequilter.com. And if you enjoyed this video tutorial, please subscribe to this channel. Thanks.